May the report. We're reconvened. Our recess is over. If I had a gavel, I'd use it. So, folks, it's 8 p.m. and we will continue with our agenda. We have an item here, a notice of intent, which we will hear for a new hearing, and our clerk will read that.
The Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 16th, 2023, at 8 p.m. at Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent of Jeffrey Miller, Parcel Project, a proposal to construct an above-ground pool and pool deck in the location of the former above-ground pool that was removed within 100 feet, bordering vegetated wetlands at 250 Holland Ridge Drive, map 111, lot 106, to Jeffrey Miller. Represented by Stephen Ryan, Land Planning, 115 Main Street, Hanson, Mass. 03341. The applicant is filing under Massachusetts Wetland Protection, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, Rules and Regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission, Philip Clements, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Hearing is open. I believe we have an applicant's representative here, Mr. Ryan, Land Planning. The floor is yours.
Okay, on behalf of the client, we're here with a notice of intent for the single-family residence located on 250 Hollywood Road. It's on the northerly side of the road. It's about 30,000 square foot lot. We'll get the existing single-family home, the septic system to the left of the home. On the northerly side is a border vegetated wetland that was delineated by Ken Thompson. Those 8 flags that he hung up there, identifying the wetland area, we're going to show in blue. And the lawn area from the backyard basically comes up just above the vegetated wetland in most areas. And then there's a tree line beyond that goes through some of the wetland. There's an existing shed that's located in the wetland that's been there for years, long before the current owner purchased the property, and there was formerly a rectangular above-ground swimming pool located in the rear yard, and we're showing that on the film just to give you an idea how close that was to the wetland area. That the closest point of that was about 17 feet from the wetland edge. So they wanted to replace the pool. The pool had been taken down quite some time ago, and they're proposing a 21-foot circular pool in its place. And because it's not as long as the rectangular pool was, we're able to slide the pool further away from the wetland to make it about 23 feet from the wetland area, but still maintain it in the backyard behind the deck in an appropriate location for their use. The majority of that falls within the 50-foot zone, but again, it's all a grass lawn area. Except immediately where the pool is going in, there's been some sand that's right there. So we developed 1,100 square feet altogether of work in the 100-foot buffer zone, and we developed that 1,000 square feet of each. So we asked for variance for that, and we provided erosion controls just at the edge of the lawn area, and also provided mitigation and plantings. Bush blueberry plants along the edge of the lawn as well, in addition to the conservation posts. I think we have 5 of those.
All right. Any comments from our agent on the plan or the site?
No, I don't have any comments. It's exactly the way he's described it and pictured it on the plan. They took out the old pool and want to put it back where. I want to put one back basically where it was before.
Yeah. And mitigation, enhancement area plans, as it says, Highbush blueberries and the post. Comments or questions or thoughts from the rest of the commission?
I don't know if you would have had more. As far as, is this a common thing to, like, they're replacing an existing pool in the same area above ground? You know, the area has already had a pool there, so we're not changing the footprint.
It's not a new impact.
Right. It's an existing impact.
Yeah. And it's not our purview to go back and examine previous permissions for anything, but what we have is, as the agent says, a fairly simple proposed project. Any other questions or comments? The chair would...
Is the applicant here?
I don't think she is, no, she was taking her dad into a doctor's in town late in the day, so she didn't know she'd get back in time.
I was just curious to know when the old pool was put in, that's all.
I don't know when it was put, they've only been there 3-4 years now. So that was taken down before they used it.
Are there any abutters or others with an interest in this particular project before us? Well, the chair would entertain a motion to issue a variance to work within the 50-foot buffer zone for the project as described.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, to issue the variance. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0, variance is issued. The chair would also next like to invite a motion to close the hearing and approve the project, subject to special conditions and details as described and is managed by our agent.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0. Approved, and we shall sign this, and the agent will hear anything else that needs to be done, or issue any paper that needs to be done.
Good, appreciate it.
Thank you. You know, so many blueberry bushes get planted for mitigation. The bears will always have food in the middle of the summer, won't they?
Well, it's okay for them. Yeah.
Oh, well, unless the birds get them first.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve. Good night.
Do you stamp? It looks like your stamp.
Oh,
Oh.
no, my printer. Put that.
We will strive to comply with our legally issued agenda. There's a little bit of time between now and 8:15. There's some things that we can do which are also on the agenda, namely addressing invoices. We will do that while, if anyone is planning to get here just 8:15, we don't wish to be depriving them of anything, so we will do this other business first. There's that. Okay, that's a good idea. Give me the, okay. I see multiple signature sheets, we only need one, right? Okay. All right. And there's, I think, time for one more important piece of paper here. We are in possession here of a memo that describes a new invoice from the Appalachian Mountain Club, AMC, relating to their construction of boardwalk for the Bonnie Hill Trail in Hanson. This revised invoice is for $9,975. It's clearly less than 10,000, which is a bit of a threshold.
I didn't print it out, but I got extensive documentation from Matt on their hours and their cost.
In other words, the breakdown of the components, the
Right.
elements that added up to this.
Right, it actually adds up to more than 10,000, but they,
Gracious.
per their agreement, they...
Yeah, because they had agreed for it not to cost more than that.
And so he sent me a long explanation for it, but it was satisfactory.
Yeah. Well, in consideration of this official invoice, which we wish to be paid by CPC, which has been the plan all along, the chair would entertain a motion to approve payment of that invoice for $9,975, and there's a signature sheet here to be sent to the town accountant.
So moved.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 400. Accordingly, we will sign this. And what will happen now is the invoice can be sent to the chair of the Community Reservation Committee, and that will release the funds to sign, for paying the bill.
He also sent a nice note.
Right.
It came in back and forth.
Well, glad it happened. Here we go. The next item on our agenda, 8:15 p.m., it's very, very close to that right now, and therefore I think we'll begin to address it. We have a continued notice of intent, a hearing which has been open for quite some time. This is a continued notice of intent for construction of two roadways, et cetera, on off-county road, Meadowbrook Farms, formerly Fernhill Estates. We have had a significant amount of review work done on the applicant's plans. The peer reviewer has provided us with a number of intermediate feedback reports, and I believe we are in receipt now of a report dated August 14th, 2023. And that review report is here. I believe our agent is familiar with it. Is that correct, Dr. Scanlon?
Yeah.
And where the hearing is already open, we will simply recommence. It's been continued a few times, but I think probably everyone in the room is familiar with the basics of the project. I see a representative here for the applicant and the plan, and I would suggest that this is a good time for us to proceed with discussing what our reviewer has informed us of. Perhaps there is something that our applicant would like to say first as we reintroduce the project.
Whatever you see fit, if you want to present the findings of the review consultant first, that's fine.
I will say first, I think all of the reviews that have been done have been made available to the applicant and to other parties because they're public records. So with all this having been done, if you have a few words, we would like to hear them.
Sure, yeah, so we, Jeff Hassett here, on behalf of the applicant and property owner, with Morse Engineering. We refiled this project back in January of this year, and since then, the wetland line has been reviewed. We made a couple of very minor adjustments to the line, and, the wetland consultant has approved that wetland line at this point. The project has also been peer reviewed twice, once on behalf of the Conservation Commission, which was done by Allen and Major, and also by Verdantis, another engineering firm, on behalf of the planning board. At this point, as you mentioned, we just received review comments from Allen and Major, and we have addressed all of their comments. They have no further comment, with the exception of one recommendation for construction as a condition. To note, the planning board review consultant is also, they're they have kind of an identical take on it. We've addressed all of their comments, and they have the same recommendation. So this evening, we're hoping that we can close out this hearing with that one condition. And we do feel that after closing the hearing, the commission can approve this. It's been designed in such a way that it meets the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the Hanson local conservation regulations. There's no wetland alteration, with the exception of one small spot at the entrance. The 50-foot buffer is removed untouched. And all of the typical erosion controls that you would expect are specified, both on the plans and in the stormwater report and the O&M plan. And to note, the majority of these lots do have, will require NOI filings as well for the individual lots.
When they become developed, if that proceeds?
Yeah, once, they're sold and the exact house footprint is determined. So with that, I don't think I have anything else to add. I'll turn it back to you.
Well, our concern always has been to do our job as the Conservation Commission, which is to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, to protect the wetland resources and the buffer zones for these. That's been extensively documented, where they are and how they relate to the plan. And that, which does include how any stormwater management could impact those wetlands, that's all been discussed and put on the record. The issue that has been extensively dealt with during these reviews, both ours and the planning board, has been whether, based on all applicable regulatory requirements and the appropriate anticipation of storms and the stormwater that they bring, whether that stormwater is going to be properly managed by the project as designed, such that it will not impact the existing wetlands. And it's been stated over and over, and we have in the plans before us here details that can be discussed further if necessary. But the key is we recruited the expertise of Allen and Major to supplement what our agent knows and what any of us know as individuals who try to be educated, but this is stormwater, it's a complex topic. And what the letter says, I won't read the whole thing, it says, Dear Mr. Clemens, members of the Conservation Commission, in accordance with our contract to conduct a peer review of the proposed stormwater report and calculations for this project, Allen and Major is pleased to provide these following comments. And what Allen and Major documented here is there's 12 different documents of all sorts that they included as part of their review. And they also reviewed information materials from 4 different sources: Hanson bylaw, Hanson rules and regulations for wetlands protection, Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, and municipal storm drain aspects of the town of Hanson general bylaws. Drainage calculation and plans as provided by the agent. There were a number of comments issued, 1 through 16, and what we see here is some were resolved by earlier reviews, but comment 1 was related to a so-called double ring infiltrometer test, which was conducted within the footprint of where the primary basin will be for stormwater to infiltrate. There was a requirement by us and I believe the state as well for this to be done, and that has been accomplished. And the bottom line of Allen Major's paragraph, and that says there appears to be adequate volume within the basin to accommodate, and they have no further comment. That issue is resolved. Issues 3 and so on through 8, there's no further comment. Issue resolved. All the way down through comment number 8 says applicant provided revised calculations, etc. But in so doing, they provided annotation of the area where the calculation is applied. The plans do not outline any construction guidance on, I'm not sure if this is typo, on if the area is to be handled differently during construction to align with the intent of the calculations. I'll ask Dr. Skellinger. That was where they were concerned that the project actually built precisely according to the design. Is that right? There was,
We need a little clarification from Jeff.
yeah. In other words, for the construction contractor to do exactly what is being required.
Yeah, so I reached out to Alan and Matrix today to get clarification on exactly what they were looking for there. Because, ultimately, we'll do whatever they're looking for. I'm sure, I told them, I'm sure it's reasonable. And what they're looking for is some sort of definition, because the stormwater basin has two sections. One is designed as a detention basin, and the other portion is the infiltration basin. And basically what they're recommending is in the detention area, where we're not taking credit for infiltration into the ground, to put a rubber barrier underneath it. And it's actually the exact same thing that the planning board review consultant recommended. So I'm perfectly fine with that. They're recommending it as a condition that, we've noted on the revised plan. I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. So we consider that as having been dealt with.
Can you articulate that in writing somehow so that we have a record of that?
Yeah, I would kind of simplify it. I would say a requirement to specify a rubber barrier below the non-infiltrating portion of the basin.
So what we're asking for, though, is a written note, perhaps email or something, maybe
No,
no.
I'm asking for it to be on the plan.
Okay.
It's a construction issue.
Yeah, I would, what I would recommend is a condition that we submit a revised plan, and on that revised plan, on the construction detail for the basin, which is back there. Right here, you have the detention area, and then the infiltration area. I'm just going to draw a dashed line along the floor of that basin and write proposed 40 mil rubber barrier.
Okay, as long as,
So let me ask a
And
question.
it'll be 6 inches below, you're not going to see the rubber.
Let me ask a question then, because that's a similar, Vedantis has a similar comment, and I know you talked to them as well. How does the water get from the forebay through the detention area into the infiltration area if it's a light storm, say a 2-year storm?
Good question, yeah. So the bottom of the basin is flat, and the water comes in through the forebay, and it's going to find its level, making its way around through the detention area, and then into the infiltration area, and into the outlet. As one of what we've added is a low flow channel, which was recommended by one of the 2 peer reviewers at one point, and it's basically, I forget it's probably 2 feet wide by 1 foot deep of riprap stone, basically a channel that guides the water in kind of a meandering route to the outlet. You do want a long flow path, that's kind of the intent, but it's also, you want to define the flow for those low flow areas so you don't just kind of get moisture pockets here and there.
you want the flow to actually happen.
Yeah, you want to define that channel and not, cause ultimately what would happen without it, it would find its route and it would create a small amount of erosion.
So this 40 mil barrier would prevent the water from infiltrating in the front bay, say, and this channel would force the water to go to the infiltration area, which is delineated by this dashed line. And your calculations show that that's big enough to accommodate the required infiltration volume?
That's exactly correct, yes. And those calculations, again, involve peer review by two engineers, and they request on it. They agree with the calculations on that.
Moving on from that comment, issue number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, Alan Major, the peer reviewer, indicates issue resolved, no further comment. And then the bottom line says, as a result of the technical changes made to the application through the peer review process, Alan Major has no further comments on the technical aspects of this application. And that's what their job was, to review all those technical aspects. any questions or comments by the commission as a whole on these steps?
Well, my concern is not the design, which is going to go extensive reviews and revisions, but the ongoing maintenance of this. We've had a lot of cases in this town where these detention areas or the storm drainage systems have not been properly maintained, and that either leads to wetlands problems, abutter problems, or further down the road, to extensive town responsibility to mitigate and take care of these unmaintained areas. You guys have some plan to take care of this until the town has to take care of it?
Yes, we do. As part of the stormwater report, in there's an operation and maintenance plan, and it spells out who the responsible party is
Right.
and exactly what has to be done.
Right. And it says that the homeowners association is going to take it over.
Right.
The problem we've had in the past is that the homeowners associations don't maintain. So we end up with a failed or potentially failed system between the builder leaving and the homeowners association is not taking care of it and the town taking it over. I have a problem with that.
I can tell you that that will be set up before they build any homes, and anyone buying these homes, they're going to be made aware of the HOA, and there will be a fund set up to fund the work. I think also there's going to be 9 additional NOI filings down the road. So, if we come back here for NOI for, say, Lot 4, and they haven't been doing the O&M, that's certainly an opportunity to do that, or to call them out on it. Down the road, the homeowners might, somebody might want to put a pool in, or put a fence up, anything like that. These properties are in the wetland buffer, and they're within jurisdiction of conservation. So,
I'm aware of that, but you guys are basically going to just leave it.
They're also required to, submit the logs to the conservation.
The maintenance law.
The maintenance logs, right. So, if any one of you drives by and you see that you don't think it's being maintained, you can have your agent reach out to the HOA and request, envelopes.
It seems that, I'm sorry, Frank, go ahead, your hand is up.
So clarify what's intended with the HOA. My understanding previously has been that the applicant will be responsible for the maintenance for 5 years after the project is complete. Is that true?
I've never heard a number of years put to it. Originally, the developer will be responsible for it until such a time it's turned over to the HOA. I'm not sure if that's necessarily 5 years.
The developer who constructs the road and everything else?
Yeah, the applicant on this project right now.
Okay. Because there seems to be there's 3 phases. There is that first phase. Then there is the phase after the homeowners association comes into existence, and 1 at a time, 2 at a time, whether people become part of that association, and their funding maintains it, and someone provides a report periodically to the town. And then eventually, at a time not known to me, the town would presumably become responsible for maintaining it. It's a lot of handoffs of this important responsibility. And I think what Mr. Mansfield says, and I feel too, is that how will this project not repeat the experiences we've had with lack of maintenance in many places throughout this town? And we hear intentions, and we hope they would be lived up to, but the design is one thing, and that's what's being asked of us to look at tonight. We just feel we'll follow the design, and we're just putting that out there in the record.
On the projects I've worked on, I have not run into that where they were not maintained. I'm not sure what happened on these projects, who was responsible and why it wasn't taken care of, but I know the developer has good intent. And there will be a formal, properly set up HOA turning over responsibility to the HOA at such a time. So that's really the only true handoff, and then at some point down the road, potentially, like any road, it could be turned over to be a public road, but that's only if the DPW and the town accept it, if they take on that responsibility.
So, I spoke with the assessors department to clarify what their approach will be, and they informed me that the roadway will be designated as a lot and taxed to the owner, the developer. The easements for the drainage will also be in the name of the owner until such time as they are transferred legally to another entity. We would presume that at some point that would be the town. I'm not in favor of an HOA, but if it is an HOA, the turnover of these responsibilities to the HOA would happen sometime, some years hence, after this project is essentially done, that there are 9 families signed up for this thing. So, in that interim period, the developer or his successor, whoever that may be, would be responsible for maintaining the road, the drainage, the infrastructure in general, and the BMPs that handle the drainage. I would suggest, and it's just my personal opinion, that the developer be bonded to ensure that this maintenance happens. And it's been our experience that the bonds that have been asked for in the past have been pretty minimal. And I would suggest that we have the opportunity to request a bond substantial enough to make sure that the project is completed according to the plans and maintained as well in accordance with the requirements of the DEP.
What's that? Do we have the jurisdiction on that, or do we have to?
We have jurisdiction.
Yes, we do.
over that. I have a copy of the bylaw with me. Set down there.
As representative of the applicant, so if you have any thoughts or responses to that, or any comments?
Yeah, I've worked on those subdivisions where the developer has put up a bond in order to ensure that the project was completed properly. And that bond was released once they had a sign-off that it was so. If that's the case, I think it sounds reasonable.
Is there a dollar amount that you and staff might agree would be reasonable for such a bond?
I'm sure that we want to agree on a number.
Is it too early to ask what the number might be?
This is the first I've thought about it, so yes.
Well, yeah, the word substantial
We
is,
need some sort of estimate of what it's going to cost to build it out and build out the infrastructure. And then the bond can be some percentage of that.
the applicant's probably in a better position to make that estimate than we are.
Yes, I'm sure.
I've also seen in other towns, the developer could come back, say when certain items are completed on the checklist to release a portion of the bond.
Well, how that works is probably premature to anticipate, but the overall amount, I think, the office here would be interested in hearing, very soon, what such an estimate would be for the total. Moving towards our goal of doing our job here, there's a letter which is provided to us earlier, and I think it might even have come to us in June, but there have been a lot of continuations. This is a letter to our agent from Marion Scott of 119 Home Street, and she is sending the letter to be read into the meeting minutes. So I'm going to take a minute, I'm going to read the letter, just so people will know what it says. She writes, "Dear Mr. Skellinger," and I'll say Dr. Skellinger, "I would like to request that the following concerns be read into the minutes of the Town of Hanson Conservation Commission meeting scheduled to be held on June 21st, and I'll insert and continuation dates. I'm writing to as a concerned resident of Hanson and as a direct abutter to the proposed Zero County Road Development Project. Upon reading the peer reviews on this project, and these reviews have been made available throughout, it seems that the developer will need several waivers to make this project happen as currently proposed. Assuming revisions to the plan will address the areas where waivers would be necessary, I would like to ask the Conservation Commission to strongly consider not granting any request for waivers in any area dealing with stormwater management and containment. These laws were put in place for a reason. This area of Hanson is already struggling to keep up with stormwater runoff. The developer should be required to meet all state of Massachusetts as well as Town of Hanson established bylaws and recommendations that pertain to the containment of stormwater, especially with the additional water that the proposed 9 new houses will release from daily use. I am very worried that water being released into land that has been built up several feet will have a greater chance of flowing to neighboring properties and wetlands, causing flooding, failed septic systems, and contaminated wells. Historically, there has been poor drainage in this area, as demonstrated by the constant flooding of yards and basements in this area. This also is demonstrated by the water that is not absorbed into the ground and ends up flowing across Home Street or through a broken drainage pipe under Home Street. This water currently ends up flooding yards, basements, and our precious wetlands with excess water, possibly contaminated with wastewater chemicals and pollutants. I ask the Conservation Commission to do the responsible thing and require strong adherence to the state and town mandates, bylaws, and directives governing stormwater management, and require any development of this area to abide by the state of Massachusetts and Town of Hanson bylaws. Any property that is built up 4 to 7 feet is bound to have drainage into the surrounding area, especially where there is impervious soil beneath it. If waivers are granted in order to make this project happen, I would like to point out that although some waivers may be feasible and acceptable, others will be very detrimental to our precious wetlands and neighboring properties. Please vote responsibly and in the best interest of the residents of Hanson, and require strict adherence to the established laws that have to do with water containment and management. Marion Scott, 119 Home Street, Hanson, Mass. 02341. We hear this message. It has been in various forms communicated to us a number of times and discussed among the board here. I think I'm correct in saying, and Dr. Skellinger, you can weigh in on this too, we actually, as a board, do not anticipate granting anything resembling a waiver or variation of the stormwater requirements. We have, both in this project and its earlier version, asked experts to ascertain that it does meet all requirements of those rules and regulations. And so I think I'm right in saying that we resonate with and agree with that point. There's a few things in here. It mentions waivers as in plural. There may be a waiver relating to a very, very small amount of work in the buffer zone where the road comes in, should we be proceeding in that direction, and that's separate from stormwater. But the point and the philosophical concerns here are, I think, are clear, and that it is in the record that this is a request we hear from the public, and may it be so considered. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to comments and questions. Well, first of all, the rest of the commission. We've already had a few. We're not maybe through with that.
I just would like to make it known, I'm very happy that the applicant has gone above and beyond in many cases to remediate a lot of these questions. And it's got us to the point where there are few concerns from these peer reviews.
I think it's clear the applicant has done a lot of work, and it's certainly in the interest to have done that. Mr. Mansfield, you had a comment which you've made. Mr. Heels made a comment. Mr. Smith, any comments? No. Any comments from our associate member who doesn't vote? This is Laura Salondra, our new associate member. Any comment? This is a slightly larger project than the average, shall we say. Okay. I'll open the floor to any abutters or other concerned citizens regarding what has been presented tonight and where we are in the process. It's good to have people here, so thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yeah. Hi, Bob Scott, 119 Home Street. I have a question directed to Jeff here. This is regarding on the page 13 of the plan. There's probably a couple other pages there too. But am I correct in when I'm reading these plans, that the groundwater level right now is 80 feet on lot 2, where the house is supposed to be situated? Which is the top of the foundation?
No, the top of foundation is 91.5.
Well, okay.
And groundwater
That's the 80 feet is that the original level as it stands now without the fill?
approximately, it's variable, it kind of follows the grade of the land, you'll find it about 2.5 feet down. So in a portion, yes, I'd say that's accurate.
So that leaves a slope in that area of like around 11 to 12 feet, going from where the house is going to be situated back to the property line?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So you're worried about runoff towards your property?
Right, a 12 foot, now you got a house on top of that.
Yep.
Number one, they're gonna look in like bedroom
Yeah, so that's something that we have addressed, throughout the process.
with the easement.
We're keeping a wooded buffer of your property, and then at the edge of the woods, the topography slopes back slightly away from your property, but as one of the review comments, one of the revisions we made throughout this process, we've added a berm and a swale along there. So, there's physically no way the water can now come towards your property. It'll swale away.
Okay. So that easement is, that gonna be right up to the property line, is that gonna be set back?
We have the easement going right up to the property line. We have the swale set back from the property line.
All right, in prior meetings, that we were told that lot 2 formerly free, would be the house would be situated 50 feet from the property line, and that 30 feet would be wooded. Is that the same, gonna be the same?
I see that. Thereabouts. I don't have the exact dimensions on here.
Page 13. We're following these page numbers and details as you speak, so please continue the discussion.
I mean, 30 and 50 sounds ballpark correct. I think on the whole.
All right, so the house still gonna be
Yes,
built on?
yes, you're correct. It's a 35-foot easement, about 30 feet of woods remaining. So all the natural vegetation will remain, and we're also proposing in that area a number of evergreens to kind of supplement the woods.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But this would indicate that there would be a 12-foot slope within a 50-foot range. Is that correct?
Well, the grade falls off from the front of the house to the back, throughout the footprint of the house, and then it's level for, 20 or 30 feet back to that wooded area where there's a swale.
Okay, on the easement part there, I'm not sure what that consists of, but is that going to be, a pipe going to be along the line there, like a perimeter drain?
No, there won't be a pipe. What you're going to see is you're going to have a stone wall along your property line.
Right,
There'll be 30 feet of woods that will remain wooded and enhanced with additional trees. And then there's going to be a berm, so it'll be about a foot-tall berm with a swale, meaning it's dug out,
yeah,
so that the water will flow away from you back to the wetland. Even without that berm and that swale, the water would do that. It's really just an insurance. The water's going to follow the contours naturally downhill that way.
Good. Thank you.
I would say that just redressing the wet area between where the Scots live, and that is the year we had a site walk by the commission some months ago, back before the weather got hot, and now it's cooling off again. And we saw how the wetland in that area functions, and we also did view, as was mentioned in Ms. Scott's letter, there is a culvert under Home Street. That actually is not part of this project, but it came to our attention and we looked at it, and it looks like it has not been maintained for a while, and that is potentially a topic for discussion with our highway department, our drainage and stormwater committee, because that wetland that's there, the construction of Home Street as it now is, itself interfered with the wetland, but that was probably 120 years before the Wetlands Protection Act existed. But that wetland and where it goes, it's on our radar, but it's not specifically related to this project. But we know that we're watching both this project and that wetland and that culvert. Mr. Scott?
Any water that flows into there, that goes underneath Home Street, eventually goes into properties on the other side of the street, which would include the uses.
Yeah, there's
And the Blueberry Farm?
well, the Blueberry Farm is north of that. It's a very short distance. Well, there is it's 14 acres or more. There's a private parcel on the southwest side of Home Street there, which is it's a forested wetland, and that slopes down to the west, and that actually directly abuts a large portion of conservation land that was bought back in the year 2013. Slightly north of west from there is where the Houstons live and so on, and there's another house property, I don't know the family name. It is the goal and intention of the stormwater design here to not increase the amount of water that gets there, but it does control the rate at which the water would get there, and it's all in the calculations that the state requirements for that control are being met. It's hard to say more than that, but we're familiar with the neighborhood now. We've walked it, we've looked at it as a commission, we're familiar with the culvert, and now we're getting more familiar with the project, and so did the reviewers. We'll see. Another question, Mrs. Johnson?
No, I was just going to ask Jeff if he knows. On lot 3 is a huge lot. Is that proposed to be built? I mean, all the acreage on there is like, what, 10, 20 times the acreage of...
Yeah, lot 3 has all the remaining land, and, we're not proposing anything at this point. There is some upland there, but any work, I'm not aware of any future work, it would require conservation approval. So you would be notified if anyone down the road was going to do something there.
But if there's thinking of development in behind there, wouldn't that change the plans of what you have here now? No?
I would suggest that since nothing is being proposed there now, it's very difficult for this commission during this hearing to address it. The idea is heard, and believe me, we've thought about that too. But not to steal any thunder from the applicant, but the commission doesn't really have anything to evaluate there because nothing's been proposed yet. But we do see it is a large lot, and that's duly noted. Any further comments on that? Any further comments on other things? Mrs. Scott?
I just
And
want
then
to
we'll move back.
clarify, the 30 feet, so if you know, cutting the woods that are there, there will be what, as wood.
Correct.
That's what we're hearing from the plan. Mr. Johnson, do you have your hand up?
I want to revisit the bond that you were talking about before.
Right, we haven't finished with that yet.
I know you were saying that it would ensure that there would be money for repairs or whatever if the road failed or the stormwater management failed or something like that, right? Does that also protect the abutters? Because I know that when the DEP upheld your denial 2 years ago, a couple of the concerns I know one was our well, and I think also concerns of septic failures. If this project does impact us negatively, does the bond also protect us as abutters and things that may go wrong on our property as a result of their development of that well?
I don't know the exact wording that accompanies the creation of a bond. I do know the goal is to have the property, the project correctly and completely finished and constructed and functioning properly. As far as maintenance goes, what I think I have heard is that the homeowners association will be responsible for maintaining it. A failure, I'm not quite sure what the remedy is, whether the bond covers only the construction and creation of it and the launching, so to speak, of the proper function. If a failure happens later, I'm not lawyer enough to know about that, but common sense suggests it would be dealt with and the responsibility would lie with the people whose water was causing the harm. While we're speaking with you here, did I not see somewhere in various documents that a water service was being proposed, and access to the town of Hanson public water supply for the immediate abutter?
That is correct.
Such that a well would be, shall we say, less of an issue. Is that correct? Is that known to you?
town water.
Our water's amazing. Our well water's incredible. I don't really have that.
Well, I'm just asking because if this is a hearing where if people have concerns about what was proposed, we should put them on the table. I'm not hearing concern.
I mean,
Am I or am I
my
not?
well will be affected. I don't want town water because I like my.
Okay, so in other words, you do not wish to, you don't desire
I'm
town
not
water.
interested in Hanson.
We
I
know
really-
that we've added that as a,
There's an offer,
many hearings we've discussed it.
an offer has been made.
There will be a water service installed to the property line, and they're more than welcome to connect if they would like.
Should that
There's no
option be
obligation.
desired in the
No
future?
obligation. Also, the project has been designed to comply with all the DEP setbacks to a well, so it should not have any adverse impact on their well if they wish to continue to use it.
Right, and
And
DEP is very diligent in looking at public, private water supply, so.
It's just the project only changed by one house, so I'm just kind of still confused about how this is so different that it should be approved, if that's the direction that's
Well,
headed in.
what matters is that the stormwater plan meet state requirements and be reviewed by multiple experts who are different from the design, from the applicant's expert, and we feel we're getting to that point. Mr. Johnson, do you also have something else?
Yeah, so 2 years ago when this project was denied and it went off to the DEP, one of the DEP denial reasons was for private drinking water. What has been done about that, this project? Is it the tie-in? Is that like the compensation I'm getting for why they, I don't know the exact reason, but it just said public and private drinking water was part of their denial. What's that?
One of the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act, and this is a formal statement of the interests of the act, is for protection of public and private water supplies. That's a general requirement or general consideration. I don't know that they are predicting an impact on your particular private one, but your private one would fall under the heading of protecting all private supplies.
Sure.
I mean, clearly, the goal is to protect you and thousands of others in different situations. I don't know the exact mind process of DEP in speaking about that, but we know that they share our concerns, and it may be, Jeff, if you would speak about that, that may be something that was very much on the mind of the applicant when you're proposing to stub off a potential water supply connection.
Yeah, the only reason we added the water supply connection is that, from the get-go, that concern was voiced. And it's easy enough for running a water main right down there to be as neighborly as possible to add a water service. We're doing other things as well, like in that area, planting numerous trees to create a buffer along that property line, and installing in that area a swale with a crushed stone trench and a pipe to ensure that water does not pond in that area.
So there is
We're just
not,
trying to do everything feasible. I mean, this project is important to the applicant. We understand that the abutter, is not going to support it, but they do want, the applicant does have goodwill, like to do what they can, where they can. As far as the DEP, denying it, the Conservation Commission had denied the project because there were outstanding comments that had not been addressed. So, technical comments on the calculations for stormwater. That was where they were coming from, with presumably not protecting the drinking water supply if it doesn't meet the requirements of stormwater. At this point, all of those comments have been addressed in detail very thoroughly, and the peer review consultant has reviewed it and agreed. And actually, 2 peer review engineers have agreed with the calculations. So I do firmly believe that this project does protect, the wetlands, the drinking water supply.
okay. The question about bonds came up. What we don't yet know is what a reasonable dollar amount would be for such a bond, but as has just been said earlier, we see that as part of our set of requirements should we go forward with this. And doing it right, if all the experts on all sides of the table are correct, there would not be an impact on the wetlands that we have jurisdiction over. And again, that's really our desire and our bottom line and our responsibility. Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Sullivan?
Sullivan.
Oh, Sullivan, sorry. I'm just trying to save time.
I've got several questions and also a statement. I put the statement many times to this body. First of all, I'm confused between Burridge Farms and Meadowbrook.
The new name, as we understand it, and is in the notice of intent, says Meadowbrook Farms, formerly Fernhill Estates, for Burridge Farms LLC, represented by Morse. So there are 3 names, and that's, I guess, the one that applies is Meadowbrook Farms.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at here. Is that the same one that's on your current one you're doing, which I think is Burridge Farms?
This says Meadowbrook Farm on it. This is the most current plan that's been presented to the
so it's
commission.
not Burridge anymore?
No, the planning board didn't like that name.
Yeah. Too bad some completely different name wasn't found, because a lot of these other names have been used before, and but Meadowbrook Farm is what we see. I hope it doesn't get confused with Meadowbrook Landscaping.
Or Meadowbrook Restaurant.
But be that as it may, that's the name of the record.
Okay. Landfill increase. First of all, I'm concerned, why did you go for not doing a mounding analysis by just adding 2 feet to the existing overburdened soil in order to avoid a mounding analysis? Why did that happen?
So you have 2 options to address, that DEP's requirements in that regard. You can either have 4 feet of groundwater separation and not do a mounding analysis, or 2 feet and you do have to. In this case, we're actually able to provide 4 feet of separation in the area where we're infiltrating without raising the site 2 feet. We did that by only raising the lower portion of the basin where the grade fell off. So it's only that lower area came up. We thought it was a good way to meet the requirement and not increase the amount of fill.
Wouldn't it have been easier to just do a mounding analysis on paper? I don't think it would comply if you did. I think that's the reason.
No, it would. It's just there are a lot of assumptions that go into a mounding analysis. analysis, and there's a lot of different ways, and to do that, it's almost simpler just to provide appropriate groundwater separation.
Okay, so if you just are going to raise just that one part of the basin 2 feet, there is enough slope. If you're putting in 1,700 truckloads, 28 cubic yard truckloads of fill to go in there now, if you build up the basin 2 feet, will water get into it?
Yes, it certainly will, and that has been peer reviewed twice now.
Okay. All right. You're talking about stormwater here. If this project goes in, you're also adding approximately 9 million gallons a year of water to an area that's surrounded on 3 sides by wetlands. This has happened before with Pennsylvania Avenue off of West Washington Street. I think there was 14 houses, approximately the same size as the ones that are proposed here. Since that went in, I believe it was around 1988. Systematically, right down West Washington Street, there's been failure after failure of septic systems. We had one person that built their own giant retention pond at Red Acres Farm. And what's happening is, this plan is a disaster for the people in Hanson. I mean, we can look around here, how many people belong to a homeowners association? No. And in Hanson, how many homeowners associations are there? I mean, some condominiums maybe, but I'm not aware of any of those. And I don't know if you can legislate that there has to be one.
One might speak to the selectmen and other people about that, but I don't know. We don't know the answer here at this table.
Okay. Regardless of the stormwater runoff, you're going to be adding, once this is complete, 9 million gallons of these houses that are built between 4 and 7 feet above the existing profile of the land. And it doesn't drain now. High Street, I'm a geologist, High Street was a recessional moraine from the Wisconsin glaciation, and you're looking at Lake Kirsten sediments. There is, I brought in pictures for you of 2 layers of clay, one down 29 inches, one down 40 inches in town, at my house, and right across the street. And the water, even if you build the house up, those septic systems that have about 1 million gallons a year, eventually, particularly in the winter when there's no evapotranspiration, are going to wind up in that wetland. That's going to make the wetland go places it shouldn't go. I would ask you to reject this proposal on the basis of the impact it will have in the future, with or without the stormwater runoff, and it's going to be a disaster. 1,700 truckloads of fill coming through the town of Hanson makes it a de facto construction zone. So you have the authority to analyze the present and future impact of this, and you are the only board that can use your discretion about whether you want this proposal to go forward, and I would encourage you not to. If you do choose to go forward, you need to bond the hell out of it, because it's going to be a disaster for the abutters. I mean, you have a signature paper signed by 53 people who were abutters both here, and by the way, the drainage goes north under County Road, so the abutters up there are also impacted, and they're kind of squeezed between the subdivision that was put in 88 and this one that is going in, and that water all drains to where they are. So, please reject this.
I have a question for the applicant that you may or may not know or have the direct answer to. The domestic water use, which is separate from what the water that comes out of the sky, those volumes projected based on good data from any other, are those factored into this plan in a way that we could be aware of?
Well, typically they're not. What we do is when if you get a 3-inch rainstorm, the same amount of water is falling from the sky. But what the stormwater calculations show is that it's going to run off faster in a paved condition compared to a wooded. So the calculations show that we're holding it back in such a way that we're reducing both the rates and the volumes of runoff. What I did do is I calculated the amount of flow from a septic system.
From the domestic
From
water,
domestic.
source water, which is additional, yeah.
Right, and it works out to about 0.012 acre feet per day. And then if I took that and I added to the post-development conditions, it's still a significant reduction in runoff. It's basically, that water coming out of domestic water service to a septic system is de minimis compared to the volume of water falling from the sky.
So what I think you're saying is that you anticipated the extra water that's being delivered to the ground area through the domestic system, through what comes in the water supply and everything, whatever doesn't evaporate, and looked at it as an extra 0.012 acre feet per day,
Yeah.
in addition to however many acre feet per day fall from natural sources. You did consider that.
And typically, that's not something I would ever do. I've never seen it done on any other project, but I did it because that question came up on this project.
Sure.
It's more than in compliance, so we're reduction.
So, okay. Other questions? I'll start on this side and work over. I didn't need to just work, but, Mr. Borgeson.
Okay, first of all, excuse me, I need to sit while I talk. I'm not an abutter, and I probably don't know 3/4 of the folks, but that's not important. What's important is, I live up the street. I live up the street maybe 2/10 of a mile from this intersection. And if you go up a little further, you gotta take a sharp curve, and you're up at the top of the street, and that is what we call the watershed pinnacle. The watershed per ton comes our way. Houston sees every ounce of water going to the Taunton River from this. They're at the crux of it. They're down at the bottom of the valley. Water comes down the street, it comes into my driveway, and then it goes into my woods down to the wetland. It's really a ton of water. It doesn't go into Pennsylvania Ave because the drain is higher. So the drain just sticks up. So you got a ton of water, and then it floods across the street. Mr. Norris's farm has got channels to get the water away from the farm, down into the field, goes across and heads to Houston. If you go down there, you look at the two houses, the septic systems are raised systems right down in that area. If you stand in the middle of West Washington Street, County Road, and Holmes Street, and think of it as a cross, you see this beautiful field. Well, why is that a field? Why isn't that place full of houses? How different is the elevation of that piece to this place? Have we gone down a rabbit hole here? What I'm saying is, now I've been in this town a long time, and you know what town is. And I know this area. I've probably been in every one of these persons' houses that's over 50 years old. I've been in your backyard, I've been everywhere. You don't see me because I'm a private person. But what I'm saying is, you dig in my backyard, you go down 1 foot, hard clay, hard sand. It's unbelievable, and it just takes the water away. What we've got here is marginal property. Why? Because all the real land sold, and it's a big win. Now, I was here, what's it been, 2 years? I feel like I'm reading the same book again. And I don't care, maybe there's a chapter missing here and there, but it's the same thing. I don't see this project, I don't care about 9 houses, I don't care about 2 houses. It's the same problem I see. I'm just thinking of, we got low land, we got a ton of water coming to it. I just don't see it as viable. And I think it's kind of being hard-nosed. I'm an old man, I'm a hard-nosed guy, I see that. And I think when Pennsylvania Ave was being built, the basements were full of water before the cement was poured. That tells you something. I've sold property along the land, a perk test right next to Pennsylvania Ave. The backhoe almost fell in to the hole because the erosion was so fast, so much water. I'm gonna start a water company, stick a well and fill pools. There's so much water there. Amazing. What else can I think of? I'll be a few more of them. But anyway, I support the people against the project, just want to let you know. I'm sad I had to come here a second time. If this project could have been brought up for reconsideration, maybe we wouldn't be here. Sorry for the gentleman, you gotta make a living, I agree, you gotta do that, but, no, I like to call it what it is. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Borgeson, what's your address?
452 West Washington, right across from Pennsylvania Avenue.
I believe the Houstons had a question or two. Mr. Houston.
Bob Houston, 669 West Washington Street, just for the record. You know, we talked about a homeowners association, okay? It seems that nobody here knows if there's any homeowner associations in Hanson.
There are some, we just don't know.
We don't know the names or numbers.
Okay, all right. But, you know, what I'm seeing with this development, okay, you know, the developer, okay, is putting in a road, okay? That's the essence of what he wants to do, and he's gonna hand it off to a builder to build the houses. All right, the people that buy these houses, okay, you know, I have a suggestion that, you know, on the deeds of these lots, you put the restrictions, okay, for this water runoff, okay, maintenance and everything else, so that they're fully aware up front, okay, if we get that far, which I pray that you don't, but if we do, that they understand their liability to the neighbors, okay, of the surrounding abutters, okay, of this property. Because what they do in their yards will affect us. Okay, what they do in their yards and not maintain will affect what the town has to do. Okay, which affects all of us, okay, on our tax bills. All right? And so it's like, you know, I'm in agreement. I don't need any more water running through my yard. All right? You know, we get enough as it goes, okay, this has been very wet summer. All right? And every time I see the report on the weather, okay, you know, flood warning for western Plymouth County, I said, here we go again. All right? And I go down, I clean myself up again, okay, and then, you know, a couple hours later, it's perking away. And, you know, and that goes for the one in the house as well as the one in the park. Okay, and luckily I have backups on both. Okay, but, you know, it's like sooner or later, okay, we've got to consider the whole area. Okay, and, you know, the soil in this area of town does not support a water runoff because of that clay barrier. Okay, it has been brought up. Okay, there's 2 layers there. Okay, I've got a private well in my backyard. I don't need to use it because of all the water coming down, but I would rather use it, right? But, you know, we put thousands of dollars into a hole in the ground, okay? And now we get all the runoff we need, okay? And I look over, okay, at the blueberry farm across the street from me, okay? Blueberry plants don't work when the land is flooded, okay? And you go over there now and you can see stubbles instead of blueberry bushes. All right? And, you know, that's what my farm's gonna turn into, stubble also. Okay? You know, I'm against this project, okay, but, you know. I'll
Thank you.
leave it at that.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Pat Concrete, Blueberry Farm.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. My concern is, the water runoff that will affect the blueberry bushes. It's true, blueberry bushes do not like to sit in water. And we've already lost enough blueberry bushes in the back quarter of our property. So I really would not want to see more water runoff.
So we designed the project with a very large detention basin to hold back the water, and we had to provide all the calculations to report that showing that that there will be less volume of runoff and the rates of volume are reduced, but also amounts. And that has been reviewed for the last 7 months by 2 different engineering firms, and they are also satisfied with the calculations. We have 3 engineers that are looking at it and are satisfied with it.
Did they come to the blueberry farm?
No, they wouldn't come to your property down the street. We're basically analyzing where does the water go from this site? And at that point, we're matching the rates of volumes of runoff.
In other words, what I think you're saying is that based on all these analyses, the runoff, the visible runoff that would impact wetlands will be the same in the future as it is now. Because of
If the system's maintained.
if the system, it works as designed. That's what is theoretically being shown by the design and by the reviewers.
What about the 9 million additional usage of water? 9 million gallons.
Sorry, don't understand the question?
9 million gallons of usage.
In other words, domestic water that's being brought to the site, we discussed
Yeah,
that.
that's not gonna be included in
The gentleman has just told us that he did include that, at .012 acre feet per day is the cumulative additional, as if that much was falling from the sky, but it actually isn't, it's coming through the domestic system, is being delivered to the overall project site. And you considered that? Okay. It's like more rain is falling, except it's falling horizontally through pipes instead of from the bottom.
So, going back to the bond, I was just texting Greg Morris from my office who went to the last planning board hearing.
Sure.
The planning board is requiring a covenant and a share of the bond. So there will be a bond in place already.
Okay, sounds like communication would be a good idea between us and a covenant.
It'll be recorded at the registry of deeds.
Okay.
Let me just say, in response to that, I would recommend that we have a serious discussion with the applicant about the bond, because the covenant that the planning board will require won't happen until the roadway is built under the subdivision rules. So the kind of security that they're going to have is a piece of paper that says, we agree to do something. I think it's more important that we have money tied up to ensure that that actually happens.
The way they do it is the applicant will submit to the planning board a cost estimate for the project. That's reviewed by their review consultant to agree on the price. And then the bond is put up before construction, I believe, because the point of it is to ensure that it's constructed properly and completely. And then it's released once there is an as-built plan submitted and reviewed by the peer review consultant, agreeing that it was built properly.
We need to have a serious conversation about that, because according to the town planner, that won't happen up front. It happens at some later time, and I want to be sure that it happens up front.
Okay. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, could a condition be made that maybe the bond could include the abutters? And in addition, condition be made to, if this project goes through, the road is built, that they call in an engineer and make sure that everything was built according to the plan.
Yeah, that is happening. That will happen. In order for the bond to be released, there has to be an as-built survey done of it, and that is submitted and reviewed by the planning board peer review consultant.
By the engineer?
By the planning board peer review engineer, yes.
The key is to have the bond high enough so the builder won't walk away from it. We just had a situation exactly that. There was a bond, the builder just said, I'm done. Just walked away from the
He
bond.
didn't want his bond money back.
It wasn't enough.
It was more expensive to
It's
finish.
more
the
expensive
job.
to fix it than it was to walk away. So that's what you have to watch out for in these bonds.
Mr. Houston, yes.
In listening to the conversations, okay, you know, the bond is actually okay, not only just for the total construction of this project, but for the maintenance of it also, is it not? I mean, that's what I thought we were talking about.
I think our bond would be for that, right? I mean, if the planning board's bond is that it is built to the plan, and then
Yeah.
they get the bond money back from the planning board.
But what we're also talking is, you know, when the road is completed, okay, and the maintenance of these retention ponds and stuff needs to be maintained. If it takes them 15 years to sell off the house lots, and there's no association responsible for the maintenance, then the town becomes liable for the maintenance. So that bond has to cover until, okay, an association, okay, is put together that someone takes over the responsibility. That's my understanding of what we're hearing talked about.
No, so the developer will be responsible during that time.
Right. But we need a bond to prove that.
Mrs. Houston?
Demetri Houston, 669 West Washington Street. I'd like to tell a story everybody already knows. The frog in the water is starting to get a little warm, but he doesn't notice. And the temperature goes up, and the temperature goes up until he boils to death. And that's what you're doing by approving 1,700 plus truckloads of soil being added to a mountain already that's going to land on all of our properties, and nobody's going to take responsibility, and nobody's going to care except for the people who live here. And sooner or later, we're all going to die. So what? But you are destroying Hanson by allowing something like this to happen. Think about it. One step at a time. That's what they're doing. Oh, just get the road in, just get the house built, just get this, just get that. I'm sorry, it needs to stop. 2 years ago, it needs to stop. It's already been disapproved before. I don't know what to call it. But it already has been stopped before, and they're just going, well, we'll just do this, and we'll just do that. Well, I'm done with it. You need to think about what you're doing. I don't care anymore about what people are making allowances for. Here, we've done this, this. Go back to the beginning. Who adds 1,700 plus truckloads of soil? Nobody. That's a brand new law that's stupid. And that's my opinion.
So noted. Yes.
I can't top that, or indeed others that have gone before. Look, I thought this project, and everybody here, this dangerous, foolish, harmful to Hanson project was dead 2 years ago. I want to acknowledge my friend here for resurrecting the dead. Okay, he put months of work into them. But I hope he will acknowledge me for putting 50 years of time and effort to creating and building my farm. Okay? The first time around, my heart got damaged. I didn't sue. We love Hanson. I've been around the world. There's no better place in the world than Hanson. But I'm telling you, if this commission now takes a deep dive in the wrong direction, we've got a real problem. It isn't going to end here. And I have confidence in you to do the right thing for Hanson. Okay? I haven't lost confidence, but I can't believe this thing is still going on. As my friend over here said, piece by piece by piece, the hole seems to be being dug out, this project's coming alive again. It's crazy that it would. It's crazy. This is going to be very damaging to Hanson, and particularly to the people here. But we can produce 100 more people if we have to. Who wants to do that? Who wants to have a lawsuit? None of us here do. We love our town. But this is getting crazy right now. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say no.
Other comments? I think it's, sir, in the back.
Yeah, Scott Shannon, 55 Homes. Thanks, Paul. I have a couple of questions about the storm water management system, just to make sure I understand it. So, right now, the runoff, this pertains to the soil system. So we have the Warren County Road, I guess, kind of next to the Johnson place, and then one behind the Scott's property on the Homeside Street. Do those swales run into the retention systems that you have set up? Is that correct?
No, so the runoff from those areas currently runs back to the wetlands, and we're putting those swales in to ensure that the water will continue to go to the wetlands.
Okay, so that's the wetlands flooding my property. So right now, I guess my concern is we've got a situation where normal rainwater kind of runs off in mostly that direction, a little bit every direction, it gets absorbed. and now you're building kind of two water slides on either side of the property falling in directly into the swamp. Do you have, I guess, any comment on affecting the average level of that swamp over time?
Yeah, I do. So that would be affected by the volume of water going to it. And we have calculations showing that we are not going to increase the volume of water to the wetland. And those are the calculations that have been peer reviewed.
Okay. So the same amount of water falling from the sky and directing water directly into the swamp will not affect it. That's what you're talking about. You know, I'm not an engineer. It sounds a little dubious. I do have concerns because my yard is extremely wet. Even, past me, my neighbor's yards are very, very wet, basically all times of the year. And, I've got mosquito concerns and stuff like that too. So, keeping those swamps as kind of managed as possible would, be certainly beneficial to me and my family. And I can see a situation where, especially if there is a maintenance failure in the retention system, which is also kind of parked in my general direction, where the water might become unmanageable. So I fear that's what I kind of those concerns noted.
All right, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Without changing the subject, I'd like a brief explanation of the storm sectors that are going to be put in. They trap oils and small particles, and they need maintenance on a regular basis. I think the plan's called for two of them, is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Calls for two of them. How does the water get into those, and how does it go between the two?
The water flows from the front yards and the roads into the catch basins. From there, it's piped into manholes through the storm scepters, which treat the runoff, and then into the drainage basin.
Okay, so how many road drains are you going to put in? I'm sorry, I forgot. I think we're on the plan.
How many catch basins?
The drains have to go into the storm scepters?
All of the catch basins go.
All the catch basins go into the storm scepters, and you have two storm scepters. And they're cleaned periodically, and your company is responsible for that until they sign off.
My company is not responsible for that. My company does the engineering, and then the responsibility for maintenance is the developer, and then the HOA.
Okay. Well, I have a request. I would like this committee to be our homeowners association.
Which committee are you speaking of?
The Conservation Commission to act as our homeowners association and actually have our interests and form out in your actions tonight. You've got a situation where there's only a handful of us here, but there are much more people out there that this will impact. So please use your judgment. Is this project good for the town of Hanson, yes or no? If the answer is no, I have to go.
Mrs. O'Sullivan.
Elizabeth O'Sullivan, 625 West Washington Street. You've heard me say this again before, and I'm going to say it again. 47 years ago, when we moved into this community, we had no water on our land. The only water I noticed was a garbage can that would raise when there was severe rain. Today, I have 9 to 10 ponds, different lanes. I can't walk out in the backyard. I can't walk over to where I have bushes and a garden. The place is drowning in water. No, and not to even speak of what comes into the pond.
Mrs. Johnson.
I have a question, Mr. Hanson. Do you have an estimate of how long, I guess I'm kind of just trying to predict, if the project is approved, kind of from start to finish, how long would we be listening to trucks of fill coming in and loud construction and breathing in, construction dust and all of the fun things that come along with a 9-house subdivision in our backyard?
Yeah.
Like how long, just approximately, how long would that last?
So it's somewhat hard to put a time frame to that, but what I'll tell you is the road has to be constructed before they can build any of the lots to get sign off from the building department on those. So they're gonna come in and they're gonna build the road as quickly as they can. And they'll clear the trees, they'll, bring in the fill, do all the grading, put in the utilities. And, depending on the seasons and the weather, that might be 6 to 9 months. And then at that time, the lots will be constructed individually.
Individually, and how long does that take for, like, I'm talking about approximate, start to finish, 9-house subdivision, brand new, where existing woods and wetlands and natural habitat and wildlife is currently living, like,
I can't predict when the lots are gonna be built. I think the road with construction is about 6 to 9 months. I mean, the lots, one could be sold to someone who holds on to it, who doesn't build on it for years.
Mrs. Scott?
My question to Jeff, why is the water from the swales not going into the basin? Why is it going into the wetlands?
Just because of the elevations don't allow for it. The intent isn't to swale water directly into the wetland, but currently that's where the water goes. The water.
Into my wetlands, I don't want a big section of wetlands out there.
So the water flows off from the site towards the wetlands. That's where it currently goes. And in areas where there was concern that the water could flow onto the putter's property, we installed a berm to ensure that wouldn't happen. They're not increasing the amount of the water to those wetlands. They're not increasing the rates of water to those wetlands. Alternatively, we're holding back all the water and we're releasing it slowly to ensure that.
You can control it with swales?
We can with basins that have small outlets.
Swales can go into the basin.
No, you have a very small area that the water is going directly to the wetlands. In the larger area, we're holding it back. So it works out a net reduction in all the storm events.
If I don't want more water in the wetlands, I don't want that.
There will not be more water to the wetlands. That is, I understand all the concerns here about drainage and the need to not increase runoff to these wetlands or anywhere off-site. That's exactly, this project is not unique from any other subdivision that we work on. For any project, we have to provide calculations, they're all done in accordance with DEP standards for any project in Massachusetts. And if we do that, we understand the concerns. We're not out here to try to increase runoff. And so we understand that, we've designed it that way. And we've had, speculation on that throughout the entire process, which is why it gets peer reviewed. It's now been peer reviewed by 2 independent engineers working for the town, and they agree with our calculations. So I truly believe that there's really stormwater. Everyone's obviously very concerned about stormwater, but I assure you that those concerns have been looked at very carefully and addressed.
I would point out something to the group here before we move to whatever next steps, and that is that even with no houses being added anywhere in 50 neighborhoods, as the weather goes, so go the wetlands. Some years it's very dry, some years it's very wet. In 1967, it was so dry that I used to try to fish in Poor Meadow Brook, and I've spent one day walking dry-footed in plain sneakers along the length of the brook because there was no water in it, looking for deeper spots where there was a little water, and it's feeling so bad for the fish there, I didn't bother to fish from them. Fast forward to a year or two ago, Poor Meadow Brook, where it goes onto West Washington Street, there was about this much airspace between the top of the water and the bottom of the bridge. Nature will do those things to us. And I think that in different manners, all the wetlands around Hanson and everywhere else responded in different ways too. There are some things that it's difficult to tell how much is due to human impact and how much is due to the impacts from the storms that we seem to have plenty of. But with that as background, what we have to do as a commission is look, besides hypothesizing and speculation, what we need to look at mostly is what factual numbers show. And the numbers are based on the higher levels of rainfall, the wetter years, the storms that you only get every once in a while. So there is a safety factor sort of built into the formulas that dictate how stormwater is analyzed. And I'll just say to my fellow commission members here and to our staff that we have tools that we have available to us and we're obliged to use, but those tools aren't based on speculation. They're based on hard numbers and facts. And independent people who have no financial interest whatsoever in the project look at them and say what they think of the calculations. It's trying to set the table here for what tools this commission has and what we don't have. Dr. Stellinger, you may have a way of summarizing some of this, but also some thoughts on the peer reviews that we've received and been the beneficiaries of. The ones that were looked at a couple of years ago, there were defects in it, and both we at the town level and the state level called that out and didn't approve it. We may be in a different place today. Your thoughts, perhaps?
I believe that the peer review that we got from Allen and Major was thorough, and their comments were addressed by the engineer, and that the project meets all the requirements specified by the state, and I don't see any reason why you wouldn't approve the project.
Thoughts, comments, etc. from commissioners?
When did we get some answers on the bonding?
Good question.
So there will be a bond through the planning board. I would accept the condition that if the planning board does not require the bond to be put up prior to construction, then you basically a condition that a bond will be put up prior to construction.
How much bond are we talking about?
We did ask that question earlier. I don't know if we know the answer, but the question is in the air.
What?
The question is in the air at the moment.
Okay. And my question is, what does the bond cover? Because it seems like the planning board's bond covers planning board stuff, where ours is more...
So the bond covers the construction of the project. It's the same project.
But that's not what we're concerned about. We're concerned about the maintenance.
Well, actually, we are concerned first about the
yes.
construction.
Right.
We very much are concerned with that.
I don't see how you can bond for maintenance, because, construction of the road, you get that bond back when it's done. Maintenance goes on, definitely.
So does the bond. That's why you buy a bond from an insurance company. The bond continues for as long as you own the
But
project.
you release the bond when the construction is completed.
No, they wouldn't release the bond. We wouldn't release the bond until you were done, or the applicant was done.
Right. So, every other project that works on a bond is put up prior to construction. And then, when the project is fully completed, it's reviewed to ensure it was completed properly, and then the bond is released.
And if that's the case, that planning has that kind of bond, then we will require a bond that covers the whole job from the time the applicant starts it until he gives it up. He's got to maintain it as long as he owns it.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the bond will cover that. And he's going.
Can I just add,
Sure.
what happens when the town gets sued for $50 million for the damage that you create to this project? We all know it's dangerous. We all know what happened up in Pennsylvania Avenue. That harmed a lot of property. There could have been a lot of lawsuits. This time there probably will be. What's the bond for that?
You can't bond that.
okay?
Can't bond.
So discretion comes into place when you see something that's dangerous for the town, is what I'm saying.
Here's a rhetorical question, maybe no one knows the answer. When Pennsylvania Avenue was planned and built, was there any bonding involved?
Probably not.
What this commission, I think, under, as long as I'm chair of it, will be committed to doing is responsible planning as far as bonding can take us, such that projects are properly designed, built to the design, no cut corners, and then watched over and maintained until someone else can watch over and maintain them and hold them to that standard. I think there are many things that were done in this town elsewhere before environmental laws and things like stormwater came into existence that were mistakes. And the environment and sometimes the people in it have paid the price for that. The effort has been through regulatory procedures to keep reducing the risk of mistakes as much as humanly possible. I see the stormwater regulations, the wetlands protection regulations, and other regulations as trying to prevent harmful mistakes so that we wouldn't have multiple serious problems down the road. This is our hope, but we only have, here at this table, we only have the tools that we have. We have the wetlands protection regulations, we have the stormwater regulations, we have the ability to bond, but that's all we have. We cannot project ourselves 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into the future to look at what might happen that is anticipated by nobody, feared by all of us, but not known by any of us. We only have the tools that we have.
Can I emphasize what Joe said? The most important thing, and Joe's a real technical guy, let me give him credit for it. The most important thing he said, though, was you also have discretion. Where your judgment is, this could damage the town, you have the discretion to decide in the direction of protecting the town.
Yeah.
It isn't just all technical.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have the ability to make decisions based on speculation.
It's called discretion when you're, what is a kind word?
Understood, and we've used discretion many times before, we'll use it again, we'll try all the time we can to use it. Mrs. O'Sullivan.
We've already been damaged. I had a dry lot when I moved here. It's already been damaged many times over. We've had to go truck sank in our yard. Mrs. Anna O'Brien was trying to sell a lot, a native lot, and she had to have a backhoe.
Some had to be towed out.
You know, that's true of many lots, including the place where I grew up on the top of High Street, the highest point in town. Vehicles would sink in. It depends on many things, and that was before much of any construction was done. While those things are dramatic and bad news, but sort of interesting to remember, I don't know that they directly impact our decision here tonight, quite honestly. I wish it was that simple, but Mr. Johnson.
I mean, we already have a problem with the land there. Putting all the stuff on top of it is not gonna make that problem go away. I mean, everybody's got a sump, everybody's got two sumps. It doesn't matter, the problem's already there. Whatever they try to do on top of it is not gonna fix what's already there.
Well, I've said the county road is one of the last roads to be built in this area because of these kinds of issues. But it has been built. And a lot of people live there. Some of you folks live there now and nearby. But I don't know if it's under our control to call a halt to everything. I think we're getting ready to make a decision here. I think we have lots of information. We spent literally years getting this information. We've had a lot of experience with how powers that are above and beyond this town and this room and this board evaluate these large issues, these large projects. And it's all been very educational, and I think we're getting ready to make some decisions here. Yes, Ms. Knopf.
Can I ask you, as a board, to to ask town council what level of discretion this committee has. I think it's got a lot more than you think it does. And I'd like an opinion of council before you make a decision.
That's a vague request to make a town council. I don't know what kind of an answer we would get.
Well, it would be, I could word it for you. It's basically, we're about to make a decision in this case. We want to know whether we're bound by specific content of the regulations, or we have discretion in applying those regulations. Can we go beyond in one way or the direction that the regulations say?
310 Code of Massachusetts Regulations 10.02, which I was reading earlier today for a different reason entirely, talks about, defines jurisdiction for the Wetlands Protection Act. That's us. Jurisdiction means basically speaking of the law. Now, what words do we say that constitute law or regulation at this level? And then it lists things. Anything that isn't listed there isn't within our jurisdiction. It's,
this isn't a jurisdiction issue.
oh, it clearly is. We already have
My
jurisdiction.
question, maybe your question then. My question isn't jurisdictional. My question is, to what extent do you have, within your jurisdiction, you don't have any authority outside, but within your jurisdiction, how much discretion do you have? The Supreme Court has a certain amount of leeway in terms of discretion. It's bound by prior decisions of the court, but it can lean one way or the other. There are some regulations of the FDA that are bendable. There are others that can't be. I've been involved in drafting regulations. I've been involved in applying regulations. There are different types of regulations that apply to bodies. I would like to know from town council, to what extent are you bound boilerplate to the regulations you have? And maybe you have to apply them and you find in their favor, or maybe you have to apply them and you don't. But I would like to know, and I think Joe raised the question, to what extent do you have discretion to protect the town, even though the regulations might say they satisfy? That's my question.
I have personally the benefit of, or the curse of having spent 36 years enforcing FDA and EPA regulations in all 50 states and some countries besides who had similar rules and regulations. And bending is not a word that was used at all. But there were also directives issued by the FDA called points to consider. But that was for brand new things like biotechnology, things that had never been invented before. Back to the subject of what we're doing here right now. I'm going to sort of look at the other commissioners that are here and ask if there's anyone who needs to do more or needs to know more before we make a decision, if you thought about what your decision will be. Mr. Heald, you had your hand.
I would like to know more about the bonding before making a decision, or at least, shortly thereafter. I think the maintenance of these, I see X amount of water coming in the ground and landing on Hanson. I see if the water is maintained well, it's not going to cause problems. I see if it's not, it could. That's my concern.
Let me ask a question of our agent here. Would we see bonding as part of a special condition related to the project?
Yeah.
Among many other special conditions, standard and special. So there is a place for the bonding to be considered and developed, and I think what you may be saying is, do we need to know more besides that there would be a condition set whose a dollar amount we don't know yet? Steve?
Yeah, there's one point that I'm unclear on with the bonding, because the description was given by you and by the Scavenger were somewhat different. Basically, so if I understand it correctly, the bond is made. At some point or another, you're building a road, and the lots are subdivided out. The other bond that is for what the planning said, that's released because it's been built as designed. Then this is where there was a conflict between what you were describing and what Rick was describing. Was you're saying that at that point, our bond would also be released as well, because you're saying you built the stormwater management to design. Frank, you had said something about, sorry, Dr. Solomon here. You had said something about,
Well, I would recommend that you not release the bond, that's all.
That's the thing, though, is that.
It's a separate bond.
Yeah, and that part of the conversation had kind of just petered out without any clarification
I mean,
on that. So
I-
you're saying that we would keep.
I
the
don't
bond.
have the power to vote, you do, but I would recommend that you not release the bond until all the maintenance is done
Yes.
through the end of the ownership by the applicant.
But does the regulation that you had passed along to us, that gives us, we were able to say that hold the bond until the properties have all been sold?
We have
in
the
bond,
power to bond the project.
And hold the bond indefinitely?
Until it's no longer under the power of the applicant, but rather passes to
To the HOA.
legally
Or
identified.
But the
their-
HOA may not
or their
take up that mantle
successor.
for some
We
time.
could-
Or their successor.
We could continue the bond on their successor if they choose to sell the project.
Clarification on that, could the HOA be the successor?
Well, what happens also, to add on to that, what happens in the time between when the lots are made and when the HOA actually takes over? What the, well, there's a period of construction that may take some time, if it fails during that period.
My opinion is that we could impose the bond on the HOA.
Okay.
My hope, however, is that we never have an HOA. I believe that every subdivision that's approved in this town should be turned over to the town. There should not be an HOA.
To
ever.
assure accountability.
Because the storm drainage that is designed for the project is part of the MS4. And the MS4 is owned by the town and maintained by the town. We can't rely on HOAs to do that. We have to in the case of a condominium, because a condominium is like a city-state. It's its own thing, all right? And so condominiums are essentially an HOA, and they do take care of themselves. We know that. They do a pretty good job of that, probably better than the town. But I would not like to see an HOA. We have had many subdivisions where the hope was that the HOA would take over after the developer left town, and there was never an HOA. I don't know of any HOAs in Hanson. So there are numbers of subdivisions where they still are private roads, and they're not being maintained by HOAs, and they're not accepted by the town. So I would recommend to you that if you hold a bond, you hold it until the town takes over.
I am hearing zero confidence by anyone, anywhere, at any time, in faith in the homeowners association to be accountable for important things like this. I'm hearing what sounds like sound advice to my ears. Folks,
Can I make one suggestion?
sure, please do.
Could it be a separate bond for maintenance?
We need to have the conversation.
Okay, my thoughts on that are that, there'll be a construction bond through the planning board, and then there would be a separate maintenance bond through
A
conservation.
construction bond from someone.
Right, for the construction of the road. I think the construction of the road and then the maintenance carried on afterwards are two separate things.
The road and the basins come together.
Okay.
They are built at the same time. Right.
In principle, that's what I was talking about earlier, what you just said. So I agree with that concept. My question though is how, I don't think we're ready to vote on it because I don't think we know how to implement it yet.
If we, as a commission, 4 people sitting here responsible, feel we need a little more legal guidance on how to effectively apply the bonding tool to assure proper construction, proper maintenance, et cetera. I don't think we're gonna get that guidance between now and the end of the meeting tonight. If we were to continue one more time, in order to get that guidance to be very clear, how does that sound? I mean, do you feel that's necessary, or do you feel that's...
I feel it's necessary. And from what Jeff just said, it sounds as if it's something that's certainly we can discuss with.
As Dr. Scaliger said, serious conversation with hard facts and hard numbers.
And I would suggest that it's not the engineer's purview.
Right. You represent them for engineering, you don't represent them for their financial decisions.
That's exactly right.
And we don't wish to put you on that hot seat in an unfair manner.
So we need you to communicate the need to your client. He needs to address this with us. I'm not gonna reach out to him, he's gotta come to me.
Because I think, to a great extent, the success or failure of the performance of any system, any place like this is built, has a lot to do with the bond. It's whether it's doing it right to begin with, and then maybe fixing unanticipated problems. That's a tool that's needed. I don't know if there's anything else from the attendants here. Mr. Johnson.
I do have a question, actually. You had mentioned, I think, Mr. Mansfield, that there was a bond and the project didn't go well and the developer...
Well, it was a specific aspect of the project.
What happens here if there's a bond and the road and the basins get built and then something happens with the maintenance and Ellis decides to just walk away, then we have to do streets and basins and...
Well, the situation I referred to was a situation where the bond was not sufficient to cover the amount needed to repair the lack of proper
In
construction.
other words, they underfunded the bond.
So the builder made a business decision that it was cheaper for him to forfeit the bond than to take care of the problem, which meant that the homeowners had to take care of the problem.
Yeah, and I believe we said that we'd get a review on our side too to make sure we don't have that issue.
This is part of the discussion that needs to take place. We need to be assured on all counts that we don't underfund anything. Mr. Hassett, you have a thought?
So kind of to reiterate that, there will be a bond for the construction of the roadway to confirm that the road is built properly. Beyond that, it's a responsibility of the developer for maintenance. And there would not be a need for bonding during that phase. So I would accept, a special condition for bonding while the developer still owns the roadway and is responsible for maintenance. Then it's turned over to the HOA, and the HOA is funded for an amount of money for the annual maintenance plus a reserve. So I think we only need to bond that one gap.
There is no HOA, what are you talking about?
Well,
Yes, sir.
we anticipate the creation of one. We are skeptical about the performance of such, but we can't sit here tonight and say we know X, Y, or Z is going to happen in that regard. We just need to start with what we do know. The developer will own it and will construct and will finish it if it gets approved, and bonding will cover the successful completion of that. But I don't know that this commission actually is the place. I think it might be the place of other entities within town to oversee the successful maintenance of it. To Dr. Scaliger's point, if there was a transition from the developer straight to the town, that would take that very uncertain phase out, but I don't know.
I do think this is something that can be addressed with a special condition, that the commission has the right to review the HOA, which includes the funding of that, prior to construction.
It's a
Because
thought.
it's something, it's gonna take some time for the attorneys to formalize that HOA, and it will spell out, I think, exactly your concerns. I'm not gonna have it for the next meeting or the meeting after.
Who is this Ken guy?
But
What's his name?
we've gone
Do I
back and
know?
forth on this for several sort of months. I think the applicant's gone above and beyond, that done everything you asked for. It meets all the requirements of what was mentioned at the local way. Your agent has said he doesn't see any reason why you can't approve it this evening. The peer review consultant says, I do think that you can approve it with two special conditions. One being the rubber barrier suggested that we spoke about at the beginning of the meeting. And two, that there is proper funding for the maintenance of the base, of all the drainage, and that you have the opportunity to review and approve that prior to construction.
I think this is a joke. The biggest risk for town of Hanson and for all of us is when not the maintenance isn't performed, but when the maintenance doesn't work and we all get flooded.
I must say, with all due respect, that failure would be a guess. We cannot say that failure would occur. We
No.
see designs that say the failure will not occur.
And the town has to have insurance that covers that risk. That's what you're missing. We're not just talking about bonding the two steps, but the future, the damage to the town for the future. That has to be insured. That isn't a bond, that's an insurance policy that the town will have to hold. Because I'm just promising you, if this catastrophe happened like the first one, the good citizens of Hanson aren't gonna stand back. You gotta take that into account. It is a risk, and that risk has to be insured. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mrs. Johnson? By the way, we're approaching the end of tonight's session. We're not there yet, but we're approaching it, I promise.
No, I know, I'm working on it, I promise. I feel like Mr. Hanson just kind of like took the ball and ran real quick. Like, what's the rush? And with this, I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between, he's very adamant that an HOA is going to happen, and I feel like Dr. Stellinger is being much more reserved in that he would prefer to be the...
If an HOA never happens, it becomes a moot point.
Can we make it so what happens to make it go from the developer to the town? What needs to be done differently than?
Well,
Has to go
Without
through the
an
planning
HOA.
board.
the planning board is in charge of those transitions.
Because I'm on it, I actually am on an HOA, but it doesn't have anything to do with the roads, whatever. But truly, we've had different people come in and talk to us about, all the way, whatever road they are, like, we want to be on an HOA, we suggest they're on an HOA, like, we don't want to be on an HOA, we don't, if the people have any say in it, they will not do an HOA. And once an HOA is funded, somebody needs to run the HOA, and somebody needs to be maintaining these, somebody within the HOA needs to maintain these.
Yeah,
Who's going, a homeowner's going to be doing this? Who's gonna step up?
of the HOA.
That's gonna be.
So to answer that,
She wants to finish, can I just finish my sentence?
I'm sorry, whose sentence are we finishing, Mr.
I was
Johnson?
finishing my own sentence
Okay.
that I didn't get to.
Please do, then we'll finish this, then we're gonna do something else.
I just feel like there's a disconnect between Dr. Stellinger feels as though it should go directly from the builder to the town, and Mr. Hassett is very pushy about it being an HOA, and I feel like can we just pump the brakes for a second, get the bonding in order, and figure out, what the actual, like, he's looking for a vote tonight, and I feel like, can we slow down for a second, or do you have to vote tonight?
I
so
think,
we can't predict whether.
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, we can't predict whether there ever will be an HOA on this. Any subdivision road is a private road until it's accepted by the town. So there will be an HOA that takes over, and then likely the HOA will petition the town to accept the road as a public road. Potentially that could be done sooner by the developer, but there's no obligation for the town to ever accept the road. At the time, the DPW might say, we don't have the resources to plow another road, we don't recommend it. Or maybe the town votes that they don't, at the town meeting, they don't vote to approve it, to accept it. So there does have to be an HOA. It's preferred by everyone that the town, if it becomes a public road, the town takes responsibility. But there needs to be an HOA in place in case that doesn't happen.
We've seen a lot of, shall we say, issues and examples of roads being private and then transitioning to public, and attempting to do so, some failing, some succeeding. But it seems to me, from what I've seen, is the ones that are successful are the ones that were well built, were properly built, were accurately built, finished, all necessary coats, all necessary drainage, everything. The ones that were not accepted were the ones that were only built in a blankety-blank way.
The paving's cracking, right?
There is a street in Hanson, I will not name, that was private, still is private, been around for about 70 years, and when the drainage was looked at there, it was a complete disaster. And let's just say I saw some problems, and we don't want those things to keep happening. My strong sense is that we're close to a decision. The applicant and the consultants that have been involved and so on for the planners have done a tremendous amount of work. It's been useful work. It's acknowledged things that the state told us a couple of years ago when they were participating in this, and also said no to the project because certain types of work weren't done. In order to be absolutely even-handed to the applicant and to the public, I think we ought to consider a motion to continue one more time to our very next meeting, September 6th, at which there is an 8:15 time slot for which this could be scheduled with the applicant's willingness, and we would seek forbearance from the applicant and others to collaborate in all this, so that we can become more clear than we are now, become sufficiently clear with what the bonding tool can and should and will do for us should this project be approved. We, again, everything succeeds or fails depending on having resources to make it succeed. I think this is that. I am exploring the will of the commission here for the sense of, for a motion to continue to September 6th at 8:15 p.m. With all due consideration of the applicant's desire for prompt closure, but with very, very large consideration for the public's need for these things to be done properly and in a secure way. Do I hear a motion to continue to September 6th at 8:15 p.m.? I hear a motion. On the board, do I hear any further discussion? Any comments from the staff or anybody? I see no further. We'll move to that vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 4-0. We stand continued one more time to September 6th, 8:15 p.m. And we greatly appreciate all the input, the work being done by the applicant and their consultant and our consultant as well. And thank you all for your patience.
Thank you very much. Well done.